Hey guys, welcome to day 9 of 15 days to Spring Boot Mastery Challenge. I hope the learning is going on well. Do share your comments and feedback about this challenge. Now we are moving on to the next level. We have learned how to develop a standalone application using Spring Boot. Now we are moving forward to integrate our Spring Boot application with the database. In today's challenge, let us learn to perform CRUD operation in a Spring Boot application with MySQL database. We will do this particular application for 2 days. Today, first let us understand the underlying concepts relevant to this particular application. Then we will start performing the CRUD operation. Tomorrow, we will learn to query the database from a Spring Boot application using different types of queries, as in using derived query, custom query, native query, named query and so on. Okay. Now, let us discuss what are the different ways of integrating our applications to the database. Before learning how to integrate our Spring application with the database, let us first understand how it was done in a Java application. If I want to perform CRUD operation from the Java application to a database, it can be done in 2 ways. One is using JDBC API, Java Database Connectivity API, where whenever I want to perform a specific operation, I need to use the appropriate SQL query. If I want to create a table in the database, then I can give it as create table name with column names. Create table name by providing the column names. If I want to insert values into the database table, then I need to use the SQL query as insert into table name values. Similarly, if I want to update or delete, I need to use the appropriate SQL query. There is one other approach, which is by using Hibernate. Hibernate is an ORM framework. What is an ORM framework? ORM means Object Relational Mapping. That is, the Java objects are mapped to database tables. This means if I am having a class as employee, my employee class will be converted into employee table. The properties or the instance variables of this employee class, like employee name, ID, department, all these will be converted into columns in the employee table. Employee name, ID, department. And each employee object, let's say I am having an employee object as new EMP. I'll just give some values. Will be converted into a row in the database table. Let me explain it again. Hibernate is an ORM framework. ORM means Object Relational Mapping. It is used to map the Java objects into database tables. In this case, the Java class will be converted into a table. In our case, employee class is getting converted into an employee table. The properties of the class or the instance variables of the class will be converted into a columns of the table. Each object of the class, in our case employee object, will be converted into rows in the table. This is what is called as ORM framework. If you notice, internally Hibernate uses JDBC API to perform all these operations. In JDBC API, it actually uses prepared statement to perform the operations with the database. So this is how we were working with Java application. Now, how can I do this in a Spring application? Let me explain this. To integrate our Spring application with the database, we will be using the module spring-data-jpa. This is a higher level framework which is built on top of Hibernate and it provides a simple and streamlined approach for connecting with JPA repositories. Technically, it is an abstraction over JPA. JPA means Java Persistence API. So, internally, spring-data-jpa uses JPA, Java Persistence API. Remember, when you are working with spring-data-jpa, you will be reducing the boilerplate code that you have been doing when you are working with Hibernate or JDBC. JPA is an abstraction. We cannot use it directly. So, we need to use an implementation of JPA, which is Hibernate. And of course, internally Hibernate uses JDBC API to connect to the database. So, spring-data-jpa is a higher level framework which is an abstraction above all these layers. Internally, it uses JPA. JPA is just a specification. We need an appropriate implementation. So, we are using Hibernate. Hibernate is an ORM framework with the help of which we can map our objects into database tables. Internally, Hibernate uses JDBC. JDBC API is used for performing the operations with the database. I can very well use Hibernate. What is the point of using spring-data-jpa? This particular module reduces the boilerplate code that you have been doing in all these days while working with Hibernate or JDBC. Okay. Before jumping into the coding part, let us see few annotations that will be used in this particular application. I told if I am having a class, it will be converted into a table in the database. So for that, the class should be annotated with @entity, class employee. So it should be annotated with @entity. If I don't want the table name, my table name should be employee details. In that case, I can use the annotation as @table by passing the table name. Okay. Next, I have few properties. Employee name, employee ID, department, salary. All these properties will be converted into columns in the database. Now, I want to specify that this employee ID is the primary key. For that, we will be using @id annotation. Usually, when you are working with a database, there are scenarios where you want to auto-generate an ID. So, you can use an annotation called as @generated-value. Now, in this case, the ID will be auto-generated. Next thing, suppose say I don't want to have the column name as employee name. I want to provide a different column name, that is employee underscore name. In that scenario, your property should be annotated with @column. It takes so many attributes where you can say whether your column is updatable, whether you can insert values, whether your column can accept null values or not, whether the value of your column should be unique. Whatever you have learned in the database, all those attributes are applicable for this @column annotation. Together, you can also provide a name for your column name, emp underscore name. That is a name which is completely different from this employee name. Okay, these are few annotations which we need to know before starting our application. All set, let us get started with the coding. Before that, I want to explain the pictorial representation of our application. Guys, this time the domain model that I have chosen is product, because we are going to create a REST API and replicate a simple e-commerce application. So, I have selected product. This product will have few properties: product name, product ID, brand, price, category. Okay. Now, what is the structure of our application? Guys, this time also we are going to create it as a standalone application. Going forward, we will learn how to create a web application. During that time, we will take this complete part and we will integrate it with a web application. Same is the scenario for REST API. That is, now we are learning the complete backend part. Once that is ready, we will be developing the previous layer, be it a web application or a REST API. Okay. Now as usual, I have a main class. Then we have a service layer. In the service layer, we will have an interface iProduct service and product service IMPL, which is the implementation class. Whatever methods that you want to perform for this particular application, you will add it in iProduct service. Now, from this service layer, we are going to connect to a repository layer. For the repository layer, we will be using an interface as iProduct repository. Okay, guys, when you are working with spring-data-jpa, we will be working with the inbuilt repositories of Spring. What is the purpose of using this? As I told you, spring-data-jpa reduces the boilerplate code that we have been doing when you are working with Hibernate. What exactly is the meaning of it? This is my product class. What are the operations usually we will perform? First, we will try to create a product table, insert values into the product table, update the product table for a particular value or for a set of values, delete one row or multiple rows in the product table, get all the products from the product table, get one single product by ID. So these are the main operations. Other than that, we can also call get by brand, get by category, get by brand and name, and so on. Similar to this, if I want to perform operation on some other domain model, say for example book, what can be the operations? Create a book table, insert values into the book table, update book table, delete multiple rows from book table, get all books, get by ID, which are all common. Other than that, get by title, get by author, get by category, get by price lesser, get by lesser price, and so on. So, if you notice, if you are working with any type of domain model, be it product or mobile or book or restaurant or doctor, be it any domain model, you will be performing a set of similar operations as in creating the table, inserting values, updating values, deleting, getting all, getting by ID. These are common operations, be it any domain model. So, spring-data-jpa module is taking care of these operations. How is it possible? How it will know what is the domain model? What is the data type of the primary key? We are supposed to provide those two informations. As in, here I have iProduct repository. I am not going to create the implementation class. The implementation class will be taken care by Spring Boot. How it will know that it has to do the implementation? For that, your repository first should be annotated with @repository. And guys, the database that we are using here is MySQL database, which is an RDBMS database. Based on the type of database that you are working with, this operation also may change. So, they have created multiple repositories similar to that. As a developer, when you are creating this interface, your interface should extend the appropriate repository. In our case, we are working with RDBMS database. So, we will be working with JPA repository. If you are working with NoSQL databases like MongoDB, then you need to use Mongo repository because the way of writing the query will be completely different. If you are working with Couchbase DB, then you have to use CouchDB repository. Okay, I will show you few of the classes while we are doing the coding. Now, in this, it takes two parameters. The first parameter is the domain name, the domain model name. In our case, it is product. The second parameter is the data type of the ID. Already I have told you the ID should be of wrapper class. It cannot be primitive data type because explicitly I need to pass the class name of the data type. So here it is integer. Few of the operations, whatever we have discussed, will be automatically taken care by Spring Framework. Based on the domain model that you have passed, it will automatically generate the query. Okay, so this is the flow. As you all know that this class will be annotated with @service. Now, let us see the flow of this application. The main class will connect to the service layer. For that, we need to have an instance of iProduct service in the main class and we need to auto wire it at auto wired. From the service layer, we have to connect to the repository layer. It means I need to have a dependency of product repository. So, we will have an instance of iProduct repository in product service implementation class, and this instance variable should be annotated with @auto wired, or of course you can use constructor based dependency injection also. Now this is the flow. This is all good. Service layer is going to take care of the business logic. Repository layer is responsible for writing the query for the database. But how it will know what is the database that we are working with, what is the username, what is the password, what is the URL, what is the dialect. For all these, we need to provide the configuration details using application.properties. Okay, guys, in this application itself, I will show you how to add it using properties file and using YAML file, application.yaml, YML, yet another markup language. Okay, so what are all the packages that we will be having? A model package which will have the model class, a service package where we will be having the service relevant interface and implementation, and a repository package where we will be having the interface alone. Okay, where we will be having the repository specific interfaces. Together with that, we can have an exception package to handle the exceptions, which can be product not found exception. Okay, now let us get started. While working during the flow itself, I will explain what are the changes that you have to do. So, follow along together with me to do the coding. Let me open Spring Tool Suite. I will close all the projects. Let us create a new Spring Starter project. Let me give the application name Spring Boot Product App. Type is Maven, packaging jar, Java version is 21, language Java. Let me give the group ID as com.productapp.dist. Package name is com.productapp. Click next. Spring Boot version is 3.4.1. Guys, this is a standalone application, but we are integrating it with the database. So we need to use data-jpa module. Select spring-data-jpa. Next, we are using MySQL database. So we need the appropriate MySQL driver. Okay. Other than this, we are going to add one more dependency which is called as Lombok. Lombok is also used to reduce the boilerplate code that you will be adding in your application. For what purpose Lombok is used? Whenever you are creating a Java bean, that is the model class, usually after adding the instance variables, you need to create the default constructor, parameterized constructor, getter setter methods and toString. Rather than writing this again and again in each and every model class, we can use Lombok. Okay? Type Lombok, select it and click finish. So now we are having only 3 dependencies. Guys, if you are using Lombok, you need to configure Lombok also. While doing that, I will explain it, or else your Lombok will not work in a Spring Toolsuit application. Now the application is ready. First let me open pom.xml. Here you can see the dependency Spring Boot starter data JPA and the driver MySQL connector J and Lombok. Okay, let me open the dependency hierarchy. See, we have used Spring Boot starter JPA. Internally it uses Spring Boot starter. Internally it uses Spring Boot. Okay, and internally what are the modules of Spring framework that we are using? Spring Core, Spring Context, Logback. Then let me minimize this. You can see here Hikari connection pool. This means based on the configuration that you have provided, a pool of connection objects will be already available. From that, you are picking up one connection object to work with your application. Once it is done, you will return the connection pool object back to the connection pool. While doing the code, I will explain it by showing it in the console. See, internally, Spring Boot starter data JPA uses Hibernate code and it is Jakarta persistence API. Whatever annotations that we are going to work with, they all come from Jakarta persistence API at entity, at table, at ID, at column and so on. Okay, first let us create the skeleton of our application. Then we will start with the coding part. Select your package, right click, new class. I'll start with the model package, dot model. Class name is product. Let me add the instance variables for this product. Product name, product ID, brand, category and price. Product ID should be integer. Price can be double. Okay, these are the properties of product class. Usually we create the default constructor, parameterize constructor, getter setter methods and toString. But now we will be using the annotations that are from Lombok. Let me show it to you. Above the product class, first is I want to add a noargs constructor. Okay, let me add at noargs constructor. Similarly, at all args constructor. Then to generate the getter methods, it is at getter and at setter. Okay, how will I know the getter methods, setter methods are created? So for that, you will have something called as outline. It might be available for you on your right hand side. If it is not there, go to window, show view, outline. Okay, let me save all. I should get all the getter setter methods. There is one error. Let me import all args constructor also. Okay. Do you see any getter method or setter method or constructor? No. It means Lombok is not configured for this particular Spring Toolsuit. Together with you, I am also using the latest version of Spring Toolsuit. For that, I have not configured Lombok. So now, together, let us configure Lombok. First, I need to go to the place where the Lombok jar file is available. Let me show you the location. Okay, how to identify it? Open Maven dependencies, search for Lombok. I know the location, but I am just showing it to you now. Here you can see Lombok. Okay, see the location, C drive users, your name, .m2 repository, org, project Lombok, Lombok 1.18.36. This is one way of looking into it. Or you open pom.xml. In pom.xml, you have the dependency, right? org is a folder, project Lombok is a folder, Lombok again is a folder, the version is a folder. Okay, either this way or that way, you can identify the location. Now select it, right click, copy qualified name. Now go to System Explorer, Ctrl V. Remove that .jar. You should go to this particular folder. If you are still finding it difficult, it's okay. You go till .m2 repository. Enter. inside this org. Enter. Project Lombok. So type P. Automatically you will get all P related stuff. Select Project Lombok. Lombok. The version that we are using is 1.18.36. See the day. Double click on it. This is the jar file. Okay. Now I need to inform this jar file where my Spring Toolsuit is available. That is, I should add this jar file to my Spring Toolsuit IDE. So double click on this. You will get a window opened like this. Here you need to identify the location of your Spring Toolsuit. Specify location. For me, my Spring Toolsuit is available inside downloads. Okay, I will copy this path. So identify the location where your Spring Toolsuit folder is available. See the folder where this green color app is available. Not the previous folder, not the zip file. Now come back and pass the path. Okay. You can see the location. For me it is inside downloads, inside a folder. Give the path where your exe is available. Okay. And click install or update. If it is successful, you will get a message as Lombok has been installed on the selected IDE. Quit installer. Sometimes Lombok may ask you to restart your IDE. Let me open it. I will minimize this package explorer. Go to product. Now the effect is not added to Spring Toolsuit. So let us restart it. Now my Spring Toolsuit is opened. You can notice the default constructor, parameterized constructor, getter methods, setter methods are all added. Together with that, let us also add toString. Okay. Using these annotations, we have added all the methods and the constructor that is needed for our model class. Instead of adding getter, setter and toString, we can go in for one other annotation which is a combination of all these three. So I will remove this. I can add @data annotation. Whatever we have given using getter, setter and toString is added automatically. Together with that, it also has added hash code and equals. Okay, this is done. Now we have to add annotations specific to working with JPA. So what are the annotations that we have seen? The first one is @entity. This is from Jakarta.persistence. Next, the annotation is @id. This is also from Jakarta.persistence. Now I want the ID to be auto generated. So let me add @generated value. And guys, whenever you are having your instance variables in camel case like product name, product ID, automatically in the database table it will be converted into product underscore ID, product underscore name. Okay. Here I am having price. I want to give a different column name. Already I have told you the annotation is @column. Let me show you the attributes of column annotation. Column definition, insertable, whether you can insert new values, what should be the length of this column, what can be the name of this column, whether it can accept null values, by default it is true, precision, scale, table, so many other attributes are available. Now for me I want to give a different name. Let me give the name as cost. So the instance variable name is price but the column name is cost. Okay. So these are the annotations that we need to add for this particular product class. If you want to give a different table name, then you can add @table annotation. by passing the table name product underscore details to give a different table name. But I will go with the same name as that of the class name. So I am commenting it. Now we will move on to the next layer, that is the service layer. Select com.product tab, right click, new interface. Package name is com.productapp.service. Interface name is iProductService. Now we are going to perform CRUD operation with the database. So let me add few methods. Void add product by passing product as parameter. Similarly, void update product again by passing product as parameter. Then void delete product where I need to pass the product ID to delete one particular row. Then I can call get all products. No parameters, but it returns a list of product, just like how we returned a list of books. Then I want to get one single product by ID. Guys, if you notice, wherever possible I am using camel case only, and I am also using the method name starting with get. As I told you, either you can use get or find or read. This is a proper naming convention. In case of service layer, it doesn't matter, but when you are working with repository, of course it matters. Int product ID. Okay, these methods are similar to whatever domain model that you are working with. Suppose if you are using book, then it will be add book, update book, delete book, get all book, get by ID. If you are working with mobile, add mobile, update mobile, delete mobile, get all mobile, get by ID. So, in case of spring-data-jpa, it is responsible for providing implementation for all these, provided you specify what is your domain model name and what is the data type of your ID. For rest of the methods, that is, if I want to retrieve data from the database, get by brand, get by category, get by lesser price, get by brand and category, for all these I am supposed to write the query. Okay. While writing the query also, there are different types of queries available, as in derived queries, custom queries, named query, native query, and so on. Okay. Now let me import product and list. So for this we will be working with inbuilt methods. The rest of the part is querying the database, that we will be seeing tomorrow. So during that time, let us add the methods. Okay. Now for this, let me create the implementation class. Right click, new class, product service IMPL. Add iProduct service. Click finish. All the methods are implemented. Now the skeleton is ready. Annotate this class with @service. We will write the coding later. First, let us create the repository. Select the package, right click, new interface. The package name is com.productapp.repository. Interface name is iProductRepository. Okay. Guys, as I told you, this interface should extend the inbuilt repository. In our case, it is JPA repository because we are working with RDBMS database, that is MySQL database. Let me press enter. Now here you can notice it is asking for two parameters. The first parameter is the name of your domain model. The second parameter is the data type of your primary key. The data type cannot be a primitive data type. That is why while working with book also, we gave the data type as wrapper class. Okay, now I will remove this T and I will add product. And this ID should be integer. Import product. And also this class should be annotated with @repository. Now let me show you few interesting things. This is an interface. As of now, we have not added any method in this interface. But now I want to perform few operations which are available in the service interface. That is adding the product, updating, deleting, retrieving the products, getting by ID and so on. So let us see how this can be done automatically by using the inbuilt methods. Let me keep the cursor in JPA repository. This JPA repository is having few methods. Can you see that? Now I will go to the higher level first, and from there we will see what are all the methods available. JPA repository extends list CRUD repository. CRUD means what? Create, retrieve, update and delete. Let me click on this. List CRUD repository again extends CRUD repository. What is the difference we will see. Click on CRUD repository. CRUD repository extends repository. This repository is the top level interface. It is similar to your serializable. That is, this is also a marker interface. The purpose of this interface is to bring all the repositories under one single layer. So the top level is repository, below which you are having CRUD repository. So now we will go in for the first implementation, which is CRUD repository. Okay. CRUD repository extends repository. It is having few methods. What is CRUD? Create. Create means I want to insert the values into the database table. So the method is save. Here yes, entity. What is entity? The class that is annotated with @entity. So product is our entity class. Then I want to insert multiple entities. So there is a method called as save all. Then I want to update. For updating also we will be using the same save method only. How it will know whether to insert a row or update an existing row? What it will do is, based on the ID, it will go and check whether there is a row with that particular ID. If there is a row already existing with that particular ID, that particular row will be updated. If there is no row with that ID, then a new row will be created. Okay. Then find by ID, that is pass the ID, retrieve one single object. See the return type, it is optional. Already I have told you, usually they prefer to give it in the form of optional because optional is like a container. It may or may not have value. Every time for opening an optional, you need to check the method of optional, then only you can retrieve the value. Then find all. Find all is used to retrieve all the products from the database. The return type of find all is iterable. I want the return type to be a list. That is why they created a sub-interface of CRUD repository which is called as list CRUD repository. Okay, and delete by ID, you can see it over here. So these are few methods. Let me come to the sub-interface, that is list CRUD repository. Now in list CRUD repository, see the return type of list CRUD repository. The return type is list. In case of CRUD repository, the return type is iterable. That is the only difference. List CRUD repository. Wherever they had it as iterable, they have changed it to list. Now, the sub-interface of list CRUD repository is JPA repository. JPA repository is used for working with JPA specific databases. That is MySQL, Oracle, Postgres. Okay. There are few methods available, few are duplicated. Now I want to know what are the other implementations that are available. Go to repository, keep the cursor in the repository, click control and open implementation. See the number of repositories. The top level is repository, below which you are having CRUD repository, below which you are having list CRUD repository, below which we have JPA repository, under which I have created iProduct repository. Correct? Now let me minimize this CRUD repository. Another implementation of repository is paging and sorting repository. What is the purpose of paging and sorting repository? If I want to sort my items that are coming from the database, then I can use paging and sorting repository. If I want to provide pagination, that is in each page I want to show only 10 items or 15 items, then I can use paging and sorting repository. Here also it is having the top level and sub list paging and sorting repository, meaning to say that the return type is list, below which we are having JPA repository, below which we are having iProduct repository. So JPA repository extends CRUD repository and paging and sorting repository. Okay, let me click on JPA repository. You can see here list CRUD repository, list paging and sorting repository. One more is also there, query by example executor. Okay, so guys, this iProduct repository is extending JPA repository. JPA repository is having few methods. CRUD repository is having few methods. So iProduct repository has its own set of methods available. Now I don't have to create an implementation class to implement these methods. Why? During the runtime, for all the methods that you are calling, the implementation class will be created and the appropriate query will be added to that implementation classes. Now let us see how this can be done. Let me go to product service IMPL. The first step is I need to create an instance of iProduct repository, and this should be auto wired. Okay. Now using this product repository, I need to call the appropriate methods. Let me select product repository dot. We have not added any method in our product repository, but these are all the methods that is coming from the top level interfaces and the sub interfaces. See, count is from CRUD repository, then delete is from CRUD repository, delete all, then again JPA repository. So many methods are available. First I want to save my entity into the database. So the method is save by passing product. Okay. What is the return type of save? After saving the product, it will return the same entity object itself. If you want to return the same object again to the calling class, you can have a return type also. Okay. Now what about update product? Here also it is the same story. I need to call the same method by passing product. So here what it will do is check if product ID is available. If so, update the product. Else, create a new row. Guys, in this case, we need to talk about two scenarios. The first scenario is where I am auto-generating the ID. So, in this case, when you are passing the product object, it will check whether there is any ID. If there is no ID, it will automatically generate the ID and insert a new row. If there is already an ID that you are passing in the product object, then it will go and verify that ID and update that particular row. This is the first scenario. In the second scenario, I am manually creating the ID and I am passing the ID. So the product object will have the ID that is coming inside. Here it will first go and check whether there is any matching ID in the table. If it is not available, it will create it as a new row. If it is already available, in that case it will update that row. Okay. Now the next one is delete product. For that it is product repository dot delete by ID by passing the product ID. The next one is get all products. Now the method here is product repository dot find all. See the return type of find all. It is returning a list of product. How it knows that it has to return a list of product? Because you have already passed the domain model name while extending JPA repository. Correct? Okay. Now the last one is get by ID. In case of get by ID, we will use product repository dot find by ID. The return type is an optional of product OPT equal to product repository dot find by ID. I cannot return the optional. I want to return the product object. So I will do a check here itself. If product optional dot is present, then return product optional dot get, else return null. Of course, we have to throw exception also, just like how we have done in the book class. We have not created the exception package. Once we have created, we will add it there. Okay. So we have completed the methods that has to be added in product service IMPL. So the repository interface is ready. The service implementation is also completed. Now we will add the exception. So select any package, right click, new class. Change the package name here, com.productapp.exceptions. The exception is product not found exception. Okay. And this extends runtime exception. Keep the cursor inside the package. Go to source. Generate constructor from superclass. Select the first and the fourth one. And click generate. Now the exception class is ready. When this product not exception will be thrown, when a product by a particular brand or ID or category or price is not available, then this particular exception will be thrown. In our case, we have not started querying the database. That is, we have not added any methods to query the database. During that time only we need this exception class. Okay. Of course, we also have to create one other class called as product DTO, data transfer object. While querying the database, we will learn about that. Now we will move one level in front. That is, we need to go to the main class. Go to the main class. Make the class implement command line runner. Override run method. Okay. And then here auto wire I product service. Private I product service, product service. Now what is the first step? I need to create a product object and call the method of service layer. The service layer will call the inbuilt method of the repository interface. During the runtime, an implementation class for iProduct repository will be created and it will write the appropriate query to save the data to the database. That is, a proper prepared statement will be created and the appropriate operation will be executed with the database. I will also show you the prepared statement that is created by the repository classes. First step is we need to create a product object. Guys, whatever we are doing now using the main class, once we have learned REST API, we will be feeding in this data using Postman. Postman is used for testing our REST API. During that time, we will feed in data from Postman. Let me create a product object. Product equal to new product. Import product. Now I am having a parameterized constructor, but I don't want to pass value for ID. So what I can do is, I'll go to the product class. I need to have a parameterized constructor without ID. Here if you notice, this is all args constructor which is also including ID. So let us create a parameterized constructor without ID. Manually you have to do it, you don't have any choice. Generate constructor using fields. Remove product ID, click generate. Okay, it is created. Let me go to the main class again. Let me take the second constructor, pass the product name. Mobile, Samsung, category is electronics and price is 20,000. First let us try to add the product to the database. Product service dot add product by passing the product object. Okay. Remaining methods we can test it later. Now we have completed the basic code that is needed for adding the product to the database. What next? We need to add the configuration details. So open application.properties. Now let us add the configuration details that is needed for this application. Here we need to provide data source specific properties and JPA specific properties. Under data source specific properties, I am supposed to provide the URL, username and password. The URL has the database name. Under JPA specific properties, I need to add one important key or one important property, which is DDL auto, data definition language. The purpose of this property is to inform JPA whether the table should be created and the operation should be performed, or the operation should be performed on an existing table. My dear guys, we are using JPA. Internally, JPA uses Hibernate. Hibernate is an ORM framework. So when you are working with Hibernate, it will check whether there is a table with the name product. If it is available, it will update the product table. If it is not available, it will create a product table and insert a row in the product table. The value that we are providing for this property matters a lot. Okay. Together with that, I want to see the SQL statements that are generated for this application. So, we will use one more property as show SQL. Okay. Now, let us add the properties. Let me just type data source. Automatically, you are getting data source.url. Next one is data source.username and data source.password. We are working with MySQL database. I have given the username as root, password also as root. What about the URL? In case of URL, you would have done the same thing when you are connecting your Java application with the database using JDBC or Hibernate. So, I am going to provide the same URL. The syntax goes like this: JDBC colon, the database that we are using is MySQL colon / localhost, because MySQL is installed in my system. If it is installed in some other machine, I need to provide the IP config of that machine. Colon 3306 / the database name. We have not created the database. Let me give the database name as MasterDB. Now similar to this, let me also add JPA specific properties. First one is spring-data-jpa.hibernate.ddl auto. This takes few values: create drop, none, update, validate. When you are using this property create for DDL auto, when you run this application, every time the tables associated with this application will be dropped and it will create the same tables again. The next property is create drop. In this scenario, when the application starts, the tables will be created, and when the application gets terminated, all the tables will be dropped. In the third scenario, none. We will not be using this. And the fourth scenario is update. If you don't want the tables to be created and dropped again and again, if you want to perform the operations on the existing table, use the value as update. The last one is validate. This is just for validating your table. We will not be using this also. So, to start with, we will be using this property as create. Once the table is created, we have to come back to this properties file and we have to use update. Okay. Now in our case, let me use create. The next property that I want to show SQL. If we really don't know the complete property name, just give it a show-SQL. You will get the property. Can you see that? spring.jpa.show-SQL. It is true. It means it will show the SQL statements that are generated while running this application. Okay, guys, here we have given a set of properties. What is the purpose of these properties? There are inbuilt classes for our data source. This data source is having multiple instance variables. That is the URL, username and password. These instance variables are expecting values to perform CRUD operation with the database. So, using the properties file, we are feeding the values for the inbuilt data source. I hope you can understand this point, because when we were working with our application, we provided values for the instance variable using @value annotation. During that time, we took the values from the properties file and we attached it to the instance variables. Here also, I am providing values for the inbuilt data source class, which is having multiple instance variables. Let me show you the data source class also. Guys, this is just for your understanding. Let me open the main class here. Let me just type data source. This is from javax.sql package. Keep the cursor here, control click. Keep the cursor in data source, open implementation. Now we are working with driver manager data source. Click on this. So if you notice here, it is expecting URL, username and password. We are providing value for URL, username and password from application.properties. Okay. Now let me go back to application.properties. We have added all the configuration details that is needed for our application. Let me save this. Now our application is ready to run. Before running it, we need to create the database in MySQL database. So let me open MySQL. Guys, it is your choice. If you want to work with MySQL command line client, use that, or you can work with MySQL Workbench. Today let me use MySQL command line client. The password is root. Let me type the command as show databases. These are the databases that I am having. Let me create a new database. Create database. The database name is MasterDB. Okay. The database is ready. Now my application is ready to run. When you run this application, JPA will go and read the properties that are given in application.properties file. Here you have given DDL auto create. So a new table with the name product will be created and it will insert one row in the database table, because we are calling add product method. Okay. Let me select the main class, right click, run as Spring Boot app. Let me maximize the console. Okay. Let me scroll up. The application has started. It has done some work. Let us try to understand it. Let us see step by step. First, it is bootstrapping spring-data-jpa repositories. Internally, data-jpa repositories use JPA. Internally, JPA uses Hibernate. The version of Hibernate is given over here. We are using Hikari connection pool to create a pool of connection object. In that, one connection object is given to you for executing your application. See the database info given over here. We have not provided any value for all this. What is the minimum and maximum pool size? This is referring to the number of connections that you want to create. What is the minimum number of connections that you want and the maximum number of connections that you want? We have not provided any value for that. Let me scroll down. We have used the value for DDL auto as create. So, first the tables that are relevant to this application will be dropped and then it will be created. See the SQL query. Drop table if exists product. The table name is product. Drop table if exists product underscore sequence. What is this? This is a sequence which is automatically generated for our IDs. Then it is creating the table. The table name is product. we have changed the property price to column name as cost. Then product underscore ID integer, then brand, category, product underscore name. See the length of each column, it is 255. If you want to reduce, you can reduce it by specifying the length. Next one is primary key. Product underscore ID is our primary key. It also has generated a sequence by using @generated value annotation. The name of the sequence is product underscore sequence. First, it is initially inserting the values into the sequence as 1. If you want to provide different values, there is another way of doing it. We will do that later. Next, it is retrieving the value from the sequence and inserting it into the product table. Insert into product, brand, category, cost, product name and product underscore ID. See, the proper SQL query is generated. Okay. Now let us check whether it is available in the database. Let me open MySQL command line. Let me give the SQL query as use master DB show tables. These are the two tables. First, let us describe the product table. Product underscore ID is the primary key. Next one is select star from product. Now one row is inserted into the product table. Okay. Now let me go back to my application. I will still have the property DDL auto as create. Let me do few modifications in the product table. For every varchar, the length is 255. So I want to change the length. Length equal to 30. I will do the same for all the properties that are of type string. Guys, it is not mandatory though. Okay, let me go to the main class. Let me add one more product also. Remember, mobile will be first deleted and then it will be added again because we have given create. This time we are adding two products. Let me run the application. I will maximize the console. This time also all the tables are dropped and then it is getting created. See the size of each and every column. Brand varchar 30, category varchar 30, product name varchar 30. Okay. This time we are inserting two rows. So two insert SQL statements are generated. Let me go back to MySQL command line. Select star from product. Here we have got the output. Let us check it out from our program itself directly. So first step is go to application.properties, change from create to update. Then go to the main class, comment these two lines or else again it will create product and laptop. We don't have an ID. It will generate a new ID and it will create this as a new row. Let me call the method product service dot get all products dot for each. System dot out ;: println. Now I want to get the product by ID. So by ID. Product service dot get by ID. By passing the product ID. The return type is a product object. I already have the same variable name. Of course, you can use the same variable name also, n product. Now I want to update this product. After getting this product, I want to change the price of this product. So I will call the setter method. So this is for updating. I will add a dummy println statement. Then I will call n product dot set price. From 20,000 I will change it to 30,000. If you want to change few other properties also, you are allowed to do that. Now let me change this to n product dot set brand. From Samsung let me change it to OnePlus. After setting all the values, now I can call product service dot update product by passing this product object. Okay. Now let us run this again. Let me maximize the console. There is no query as drop table if exists, create table product or create table product underscore sequence. Why? Because we have used the value as update. It is performing the operation on the existing table. We are trying to retrieve all the products. Both the products have come. Initially, the value of this product is 20,000. Then we are trying to retrieve the product by ID 1. This is the output. Then see the final output for update. Update product set brand equal to question mark, category equal to question mark, cost equal to question mark, where product underscore ID equal to question mark. We are not printing the value, so we are not able to see the output. Maybe I will go to MySQL command line, select star from product. See, the first product is updated. Okay, now I will print the updated product and then I will delete the product with the ID 2. So the method is product service dot delete product by passing the product ID. Okay. If you want to check whether it is deleted or not, again call product service dot get all products. Let me add a dummy println statement in between. Let me run the application. I will maximize the console. After updating, I am trying to print the product. You can see the updated product. Then I am deleting the product. Delete from product where product underscore ID equal to question mark. Finally, I am getting the list of all the products. Of course, we are having only one. It is printing it. Okay. So, we have learned to perform the basic CRUD operation in a Spring Boot application with our database MySQL. Guys, I hope this part is clear. Initially, it will be tough to understand the flow, take time and complete this application. Only after you have completed, move forward to query the database. While querying the database, we will be learning about different types of queries. That is for tomorrow's session. Once you have completed this application, please do share your thoughts in the comment section. Let us learn, code, grow together. Thanks.